Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you've ever tried to write code to analyze and track high-value physical assets like comic books or coins, you know that real-world provenance and sales data is a mess. With those asset classes, we're not dealing with clean, modern database rows where every field is guaranteed or even possible. High-value historical assets live across fragmented sources. In addition to publicly accessible databases, we find data in old auction catalogs, forum posts, and a fun one, but a difficult one to deal with from a data perspective, word-of-mouth history passed along at conventions. Ghost objects that are believed to exist but have disappeared from public view are common. You may have very little information about those. I've been working in this space for 25 years, and I've relied on ad hoc data structures for that whole time. It works, mostly, and just grew organically from the act of doing the work. As a YouTube channel where I share this data has grown, I decided I needed to do a better job of modeling this stuff. I built Alt Asset Spec to solve that exact problem. It's an open-source TypeScript specification designed to handle fuzzy, multi-decade asset histories with structural rigor, but without forcing you to invent data that doesn't exist. To test this specification, I use interesting items with cool and interesting real-world provenance. One such example is the Edgar Church mile-high copy of Superman #1. The book is legendary. It's twice set the record for the most expensive comic book ever sold, and its provenance spans nearly 50 years. From Chuck Rosansky discovering the collection in Denver back in 1977 through major private sales and auction houses to modern slab encapsulation. It's also full of fuzzy events, specifically estimated grading dates and multiple private transactions. Multiple grading dates leads us to one of the most important features of Alt Asset Spec. It's how it handles identity. It separates the physical object from its temporary certification. In Alt Asset Spec, we create a canonical anchor, a persistent URN for the physical book itself. In this example, URN : alt asset : type is comic because you can do other ones. Comic is just the first one I did. It's extensible into coins and cards. DC Comics, which is the publisher, Superman, which is the book, 1, which is the issue number, and then inst 145, which is just an increment counting the number of records that I have in this data set. Everything else, pedigree status, CGC certifications, grading company crossovers, sales records, is just metadata layered on top of that immutable physical object. In some edge cases, even if a book isn't a recognized pedigree or from a famous collection, unique physical characteristics would allow us to anchor the item to a URN and track it across reholders and crossover grades over time. Let's look at how the spec handles the complexity in the JSON. First, we have authentication state versus history, and I'm guilty of this. Instead of overwriting the grade and cert number when the book is reholdered or regraded, in Alt Asset Spec, we track the journey of the book from holder to holder. The property current authentication represents active state, but historical authentication preserves every past cert number and grade the book has ever held. Second, the provenance ledger. The ledger handles financial and non-financial milestones in a single chronological scheme. For example, pedigree discovery. The date, which I'm estimating, is January 14th, 1977, and the note is, Chuck Rosansky buys the original Edgar Church mile-high pedigree. There's a long story, there's a long backstory to that. I'm not going to share that here, but it is quite interesting. And then the other one, which is really interesting for our purposes here today, the grading event. So it's a grading event. It's graded by CGC. The platform, the grading platform is CGC. And the date, as you'll see, is 2000. That's an estimate. It was graded sometime, as the note says, it was graded at some time before the first CGC census, which was in 2001, July of 2001. That flexibility at the edges is crucial. The spec accommodates partial dates, unpriced private transfers, and missing secondary metadata without throwing a fit. This isn't just an academic exercise. I've already migrated the entire dataset powering the $100,000 Club repo over to Alt Asset Spec. Every single record, tracking decades of comic book sales and provenance, converted cleanly with zero schema failures. And what's great about having this type-safe foundation is that it gives us a clean target for progressive data enhancement. For instance, after the initial migration, I went back to add exact pedigree discovery dates and original CGC encapsulation dates to historical records like this Superman #1. Because the spec defines explicit optional schemas for those events, I can continually add data enhancements without breaking downstream web applications or existing UI components. And my audience won't complain when things go sideways, because they won't go sideways. So the spec is open source, available on GitHub, published on NPM, and actively being refined as I throw more and more complex real-world edge cases at it. If you're working with high-value collectibles, provenance tracking, or domain-specific data modeling, take a look at the code on GitHub. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing, how we're structuring these records, and I'd love to see how you might apply it to your own data sets. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.